Welcome to the 1-2 Tempo Us podcast. I'm your host, Dave Taynor. We're about 2 weeks into preseason camp right now. We just finished our second scrimmage. And this is the point in camp where a football team starts to take shape. The depth chart is becoming clearer. You start to understand the strengths and weaknesses of each position group. You start figuring out who you can count on in the fourth quarter when the game is tight, who you can count on third down when you need to make a play. And you start figuring out who you're truly going to be. Now, we can put about 62 or 63 guys on that bus. A 2 deep accounts for 44 of them. Add 2 or 3 specialists, and that leaves about 15 or 16 seats, and those seats matter. Those are the guys who may not be starting on offense or defense, but they can run down on a kickoff, cover a punt, block a punt, make a key block in space, and step into a role when somebody goes down, the next man up. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Never overestimate your role, but never underestimate its importance. Because those last 15 or 16 seats on the bus aren't guys that are just filling seats. They're helping determine what kind of football team gets off of that bus. And that's really what we're doing right now. We're not just finalizing the depth chart. We're finalizing an identity that we're going to carry into the 2026 season. Who are we? What do we do well? What can we hang our hat on when the game gets difficult? But there's another question that might be even more important. What happens when somebody knocks the damn hat rack over? What happens when somebody takes away the thing that you believe that you were best at? What is your counterpunch? Now that question takes me back more than 15 years to a young defensive coordinator at Urbana University named Dave Barr, and a defensive identity that when he first told me the name, I have to admit, I had my questions, but it proved to be the core identity of the most successful defense in university history, the Soul Takers. When I took the head coaching job at Urbana University, one of the first decisions I had to make was who was going to be our defensive coordinator. And I took a chance on a young coach named Dave Barr. Barr and I had worked together for 2 years at Tiffin University, a pretty successful 2 years, 19-3 as a team. I was on the offensive side of the ball, and he coached the defensive backs, was a position coach for us. So we weren't sitting in the same meeting room every day, but I had 2 years to watch him work. I said this in the softball silly season episode. Every practice is an interview, and every game is a chance to earn trust. Coach Barr didn't know he was interviewing to become my defensive coordinator someday. Hell, I didn't know I was going to have a defensive coordinator to hire. But that's the point. Your next opportunity is often being decided by how you handle the opportunity you already have. For 2 years, I watched Barr teach. I watched him listen. I watched him learn. He was detailed. He asked questions. He studied. And he was constantly trying to get better. Coach Barr was building trust long before either one of us knew what that trust would eventually be worth. So when the opportunity came, I wasn't betting on somebody I didn't know. I was betting on 2 years of evidence. Coach Barr also met 3 qualifications I've always valued in young coaches. He was poor. He was smart, and he was hungry. And when I say poor, I mean poor. Small college assistant coaches don't make shit. Neither one of us was getting rich coaching football. But there's something about coaching at that level that reveals pretty quickly whether somebody loves the work or just loves the idea of where that work might get them someday. Dave loved the work, and he was hungry. Not just hungry for a title, not hungry to put defensive coordinator on his resume alone. He was hungry for an opportunity to grow, hungry to own the responsibility that came with that opportunity. There's a difference with that. Now, he had never coordinated a defense before, and I had never been a college head coach before. So you've got a first-time college head coach hiring a first-time defensive coordinator. On paper, that's a risk. But sometimes leadership requires you to stop asking, has this person already done the job? And start asking, have I seen enough to believe this person can become elite at the job? It's production or potential. That's the builder's dilemma. With Barr, I had seen enough. And there was another reason why I knew he was the right fit. I already had a vision for what I wanted us to be on defense. At Tiffin, we had played a 3-3-5 defense. I liked the structure. I liked the flexibility. And I knew I wanted to build from that same basic framework at Urbana, but I didn't want to take Tiffin's defense, change the colors on the playbook, and call it the Urbana defense, because Urbana wasn't Tiffin. At Tiffin, we could afford against our schedule to stay relatively basic defensively because we were bigger and more physical than our opponents. We could line up, play sound football, let our physical players be dominant. Urbana, though, was going to be different. Initially, recruiting the same size and physicality was going to be difficult. So if we couldn't immediately be the biggest defense on the field, we damn well better be one of the fastest. I wanted athletes, I wanted speed, I wanted movement, and I wanted offenses wondering where in the hell the pressure was coming from. I wanted intentional chaos. And when we arrived at the football, I wanted us to arrive violently. So yes, I wanted a 3-3-5, but I didn't want Tiffin's 3-3-5 per se. I wanted Urbana's 3-3-5. There's an important leadership lesson in that. Something works somewhere else. So our basic instinct is to try to just recreate it. Same system, same structure, same process. But leadership doesn't work that way. You can't build an identity around people you don't have. Understand your environment. You have to understand your resources. And most importantly, you have to understand your people. Then build something that allows their strengths to become your identity. I knew the framework: fast, chaotic, disruptive. Those were the guidelines. But I didn't know what the defense was going to become exactly. And that's another reason why Coach Barr was the right hire. I didn't hire him to protect my idea. I hired him to build on it. Give people enough direction to understand the destination and enough ownership to find a better way to get there. And Dave Barr did that pretty damn quickly, I might add, because before long, he came to me with an idea for what this defense was going to be called: the Soul Takers. And I have to hesitate just a moment here. When he first said it, I thought it was cheesy as hell. Honestly, the name caught me a little off guard. Dave Barr was and still is a very faith-driven guy. So when he says Soul Takers, my mind immediately goes to devils and demons and all this dark imagery stuff. Then the football coach in me went somewhere else. I'm thinking intimidation, big hits, violence, knocking the shit out of people. Old school Oakland Raiders stuff. Make an offense get to the point where they just want to quit. That's what I thought Soul Takers meant. But that's not where Barr's mind was at all. I was thinking intimidation. Coach Barr was thinking strategy. He was playing chess. He was thinking boxing. He was thinking basketball all at the same time. And his idea actually was pretty simple. Every offense has something it wants to be. Every coordinator has what I call their comfort food. That call you go back to in a moment of hesitation. 3rd and 4, game's tight, play clock's moving. You need an answer. What are you going to order off the menu? Your comfort food. Every coordinator has something. And there's an internal game that's being played between coordinators trying to figure that out. Now, sometimes the inexperienced coordinator doesn't even realize the other guy's playing. So what's your comfort food? What do you believe in when you absolutely have to have an answer? Because if I can figure it out, I can start taking it away. Think about basketball. You're defending a great player who wants to attack to his right. That's where he's comfortable. That's where he's dangerous. Don't spend the entire night hoping he misses. Hope is not a strategy. Make his ass go left. Now prove you can beat me doing something you don't want to do. Boxing is the same way. A fighter wants to establish a jab and keep the fight at a distance. Take away the jab. Close the distance. Get him against the ropes. Now let's find out how well he can dirty box in the clinch. Change the fight. Don't fight him where he's strongest. Make him fight your fight. Football is no different. I remember one year at Urbana, we were playing Notre Dame College. They had a running back who was an impact player, explosive player, but he was a straight line downhill runner. And when he could get his shoulders square and come downhill, he was a problem. He had gone for over 200 yards the previous week against Grand Valley State. So we were looking at him on film. And the question wasn't just how do we tackle this guy? The better question is, what does this guy need in order to be great? The answer was obvious. He needed to get downhill. So the game plan became simple. Make him cut once in the backfield. That's it. Spill the football. Make him redirect before he hits the line of scrimmage. Don't let his shoulders get square and become the player he wants to be. So in the game, we played Buffalo Snap 3 quite a bit to create that picture. Now, snap is designed to spill a ball carrier, and we held him to under 70 yards and dominated the game. Now, here's the interesting part. We could have played Buffalo Crack 3, which was our core identity. Now, Crack cages an elusive runner and forces him downhill. It's the same family of defense, but structurally, it would have given this particular back exactly what he wanted. And he might have gone for over 300 yards against us, honestly. That's soul taking. It's not simply asking, how do we stop them? It's getting specific to their identity. What do they need to be who they are? And then take that away. Their personnel was built to run the football downhill. Their offensive line believed in it. Their running back excelled in it. And when the game got tight and they needed 3 yards for a conversion, that's where they wanted to live. Being a soul taker wasn't simply about stopping a play. It was about taking away the thing the opponent believed made them who they were. And then asking, hey, can you win another way? Can you play left-handed? Can you still produce when you're uncomfortable? That's when the name Soul Takers started making sense to me. Coach Barr wasn't talking about taking somebody's courage away. He was talking about taking away their comfort. And if you've listened to this podcast before, you've heard me say, adversity reveals what comfort conceals. Well, the Soul Takers were trying to create adversity. Take away the comfort, change the fight, force the adjustment, and then find out, who are you when you can't be who you plan to be? That's a hell of a lot different than just knocking the shit out of somebody, and it's a hell of a lot more interesting. What made Barr's idea even more interesting to me personally was that it was really not that far removed from how I already thought about offense. Now, we have an offensive philosophy at Urbana and pretty much everywhere else I've been built around an idea called MAPS, multiple, aggressive, physical, and sound. And a major part of that philosophy is something I've talked about before on this podcast. Feed the studs. It's pretty simple, really. Figure out who your best players are. Figure out what they do best. Find the structural weakness in the defense. Then attack those weaknesses with our studs. That's coaching. That's game planning. Don't ask your players to become something they're not just because your ego says that's what we're supposed to be. Barr essentially took that philosophy and applied it to defensive football. Offensively, we're asking the question, what do our best players do best? Defensively, Barr was asking, what do their best players do best? What makes them go? What makes them dangerous? And maybe most importantly, what do they believe about themselves? Because every good offense has an identity. Every good team does. There's something they believe they can hang their hat on. This is who we are. Soul taking meant finding that thing and knocking the damn hat rack over. Now you've got to find a new place to hang your hat. Take away their best player. Take away the concept that they trust when the game gets tight. Take away their comfort food. Now, what's your second answer? And that's where this starts to become bigger than football. Organizations have identities. Teams have identities. People have identities. We develop beliefs about ourselves. This is what I do well. This is how I solve problems. This is who I am. And we need that. Identity gives us somewhere to stand. It creates confidence. It gives us direction. But there's a tension hiding inside of that strength. Because the stronger your identity becomes, the easier it becomes to confuse who you are with how you do it. Those aren't the same thing. Eventually, somebody or something is going to take away your preferred answer. So identity gives you somewhere to stand, but it becomes a weakness when it's the only place you're capable of standing. So now, the soul taker question has to flip. We've spent all this time talking about taking away somebody else's identity, but what happens when somebody comes for yours? If you gave me my personnel of choice and told me to build the offense that I would choose to build, now we're going to run the football downhill with gap schemes, power, counter, downhill, and physical. There's a mentality to that style of football I've always loved. It's part of the reason why I've always respected what North Dakota State has built. Shout out to Tim Polasek now, who's their head coach at North Dakota State University. He was an assistant coach with me when I was at UW Stevens Point. They are going to run A-gap power better than anyone in the country. There's something powerful about knowing exactly who you are. Here's what we do. You know it's coming. Now stop it. I love that mentality. But there's a problem. What happens when they do? Stop it. Maybe they've committed their entirety of their structure and resources to stop power. Or they're better than you at the point of attack. Now that doesn't happen in North Dakota State very often. Your best answer isn't working. Now what? Do you keep calling power because that's who we are? Maybe, because conviction matters. Determination matters. But sometimes what we call conviction is really just stubbornness. That's the lesson. You've got to be grounded enough to know who you are and light enough on your feet to adapt when the situation demands it. Because eventually, everybody gets their soul taken. Eventually, your first answer is going to get taken away. So what's your counterpunch? The more I thought about the question of what is your counterpunch, the more I've come to realize something. I don't need another leadership model to explain the answer. We already have one. It's literally the name of the podcast. Want to, tempo, us. Those three ideas are built into our cultural playbook. And when you put them together, they prepare you for exactly this moment. What do you do when somebody takes away your first answer? It starts with want to. Want to is attention to detail and preparation, investing to fill the toolbox. Learn the fundamentals, learn the skills, but don't just memorize procedures. There's a difference between a process and a checklist. A checklist tells you what to do next. A process helps you understand why you're doing it. So learn the fundamental skill. Understand the concept behind it. Then hone in on the process that allows you to solve the problem when the picture changes. Because if all you ever taught is, when A happens, do B, what happens when you get C? You're stuck. And sooner or later, adversity is going to give you a C. That's why our cultural playbook doesn't stop at attention to detail and preparation, investing to fill your toolbox. And then have the resourcefulness and the confidence in the face of adversity to use the toolbox. So that's the connection. We don't prepare because we expect everything to go according to plan. We prepare because we know eventually it won't. Procedures work when the picture stays the same. The checklist will work. Process allows you to solve the problem when the picture changes. Prepare, learn, fill the toolbox. So when somebody takes away the hammer, you don't stand there bitching because you don't have a hammer. You've got another tool. I've used this line in leadership training before when looking at change. Poor leaders fear change. Good leaders adapt to change. And great leaders take advantage of the opportunities change creates. That's resourcefulness. That's want to. Now take that want to and add in a little bit of tempo. In our cultural playbook, tempo is relentless play. 6 seconds, start to finish. A one more than you approach. But that mentality doesn't only apply to physical effort. It applies to learning, being a relentless, lifelong learner. You make a decision. Something happens. You've earned an outcome. Now you've got the information. What did you learn? Did it work? Well, why? Did it fail? Why? What needs to change? Are we adaptable to making those changes? Not changing for the sake of changing and not abandoning your identity because you got punched in the mouth once, but you learn, adjust, and go again. That's tempo. The outcome of one event becomes preparation for the next one. Then you do it again. One more rep, one more adjustment, one more answer. That's the one more than you approach applied to learning. I'm going to keep learning when you're satisfied with your answer. I'm going to keep looking when you've decided you already figured it out. I'm going to keep adapting when you've decided this is just the way that things are. Every outcome becomes information. every piece of information becomes an opportunity to learn. And the moment you believe you've arrived at the final answer, you've probably stopped looking for a better one. Relentless isn't just how you work. Relentless is how you learn. And then there's the us factor. This might be the one people miss the most. You learn your job, learn the details. You need to understand the micro picture. Understand the fundamentals and processes required to perform your responsibility at an elite level. You have to own your job. But don't just stop at your job. Learn the macro picture, the bigger picture. Understand why your job exists. Understand how it affects the person beside you. Understand how all of those individual responsibilities fit together. Because there's a difference between somebody who knows how to execute an assignment and somebody who understands how their assignment helps everybody else execute theirs. That's selfless learning. And that's exactly what we're talking about in the cultural playbook when we say, train your strengths to help your brothers win and train your weaknesses to protect your brothers. That's the us factor. You're no longer developing simply because you want to become better at your job. You're developing because your growth makes us better. And that creates versatility. Because when circumstances change, you don't just know your assignment, you understand the system. Somebody goes down, next man up. Somebody's roles change, next person steps in. The original plan gets its soul taken. Now you can see more than your little piece of the puzzle. You understand how the pieces work together, and you can help find another solution. Selfless learning creates versatility. So in closing, make your decision great. Eventually, somebody is going to take away your first answer. That's competition. That's leadership. That's life. So prepare, prepare, prepare. Fill the toolbox. Learn from what happens and find your counterpunch. But eventually, preparation has to end. The play clock is running. You have to decide. Now, don't wait for perfect information. Don't let perfection become the enemy of progress. Make the best decision you can with the information you have. And then make your decision great. Because adaptability isn't indecision. Be grounded enough to know who you are and light enough on your feet to change how you get there. Somebody is eventually going to make you go left. Somebody's going to take away your jab. Somebody's going to knock over the hat rack you tried to hang your hat on. That's when you find out if your identity is real or if it was only comfortable. Want to tempo us.